Hello guys, in this class we are going to see some extra content. This content is not mandatory to use Grafana, but it can really improve your analysis in Grafana. So in this class and on the next class, we are going to have a quick overview of what are queries, how to build them, and what is the logic behind their construction. We are going to use the PostgreSQL language, which is the same query language that we are going to use in our case study. If you're interested in learning some query language other than PostgreSQL, like MySQL or LightSQL for example, don't worry. PostgreSQL is very similar to most of the other popular query languages. So if you understand Postgres logic, you only have to make some small adjustments to use most of the other query languages. And this class is not mandatory to learn to use Grafana. If you already know how to use PostgreSQL or some other query language, feel free to skip this class and the next. This class will be very straightforward. The idea here is to teach you the logic of building SQL queries. While them talking about what are queries, they are basically requests that can be made to a database. So imagine that you work at a company that stores its sales data on a database with several tables containing information on how much was sold, who were the customers, and information about those customers. This database can have dozens, even hundreds of tables, and each one of those tables can have thousands or even millions of records. So if you want to know, for example, who are the customers that live in the city of Rio de Janeiro, you have to somehow request this information to your database. And you will have to do so using a language that your database will understand. And the query language will do exactly that. You can use the query language to build a logical expression that will return the information that you want. And this information will be returned on a table format. And this table will be in the format that you requested on your query. And in this class we are going to cover 4 basic expressions that you need to know to start building your own queries. There are other expressions, but with these 4 expressions you will be able to build queries that will be very helpful later in Grafana. So the first of those expressions is the expression that brings the columns of your result table. And this expression is the select. So on the result table that you want to receive as a response from your database, we are going to use the select expression to declare the columns that we want to have on our result table. If it's not clear yet how to start writing your query, don't worry, because in the second part of this class, I will bring an example using the database of our case study of sales of electronic products in South America, and we are going to open our database in Elephant SQL and start building some queries. And the second element that we have in queries are the table from the database that we are going to use to extract information from. And we do that using the expression from. And the third expression that we are going to see allows us to create a condition inside our query. So for example, we may want to create a query that returns only values that meet a certain condition. For example, in the case of a column with numerical values, we may want to have a result table only with positive numerical values. And we can do so using the expression where, and then writing the condition that we want to apply to our query. And finally, our fourth expression is the group by expression. And it is used to aggregate data. In our sales example, we have in our database records of daily sales, and we may want to group this information to calculate total sales per month and create a table based on that. So instead of having each line representing the sales for one day, we can group this result and bring in each line the total sales for a whole month. And we can do that with the expression group by. So now let's see how to write these expressions to create our queries. And what I'm going to show here applies to both PostgreSQL and MySQL, and in fact to several other query building languages. So we always start our queries with the expression select, and then the name of the columns that we want in our response table. And here you can write the name of the columns that you have in our database. So we always start with the expression select, and the name of the columns that we want to create in our response table. And here we can call the columns from the tables that are on our database and that we call on the next expression, the from expression. So the second expression that we are going to use is the from expression. So right after the select, we can write from and the name of the table that we want to call from our database. It's important that you write exactly the same name that the table is registered on your database. And now we can add our third expression, which is the condition. And we can do so using the expression where. Then after the expression where, we can write the condition that we want to use. The condition can be, for example, a logical expression. So we can make this condition be that a certain column matches a certain value. And we are going to see how to write conditions in Elephant SQL in just a moment. And the where expression, as well as the group by expression, which is the next expression that we are going to see, are both optional. If you don't want to use the where expression or the group by expression on your query, there's no problem. The query can work without it. Now let's take a look on how to write a query based on our case study. We are going to start using the three first expressions that we saw. So let's first take a look at the sales table of our case study. It has 6 columns and brings data about sales of electronic products in South American countries. I brought here on the slide a print of this table, the sales underline South America table, that brings the sales of electronic products in South America and the 6 columns of this table. We can start a query that brings the amount sold by date, and we can start by writing a query that returns the amount sold by date and by country. And to do that, we can start by writing select and the name of the columns that we want to bring on our results table, which are the columns date, country, and income. And it's important to write everything in the right order. So we are going to write select and use a comma after the name of each column, except the last column. Otherwise, Elephant SQL will report an error and is not going to run this query. So it's important to pay close attention here on how you write this query. And then after this first expression, we are going to use the from expression to define exactly which table of our database we are going to use. So now with those two expressions, select and from, we already pointed out which columns we want to bring and which database table we are querying from. Now we can still add a third expression, a condition. So for example, we may only want to see rows that meet a certain condition. And the condition that we are going to add is that the language of the countries that we are measuring the revenue must be Spanish. And we add this condition by writing the expression where language equal Spanish. So now I'm going to switch over to Elephant SQL and we are going to build this query to see the results.